Welcome back to Inside City Hall. My next guest tonight recently unveiled a new program to fix our city's deteriorating public housing system without breaking the bank. The plan includes creating 50% affordable housing units and 50% market rate units on high-value public land. The Wyckoff Gardens development in Boerum Hill in Brooklyn and the Holmes Towers on Manhattan's Upper East Side are the first two properties that are scheduled to undergo major changes as part of the new program. Joining me now to talk more about it is Shola Olatoye. She's the chair and CEO of the city's Housing Authority. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Nice to see you again, Errol.
This is your version of a plan, or an idea at least, that's been kicked around for quite a while. Let me start by, I guess, getting a full description of what's going to happen. I know Wyckoff Gardens, and there's a portion of parking lots that aren't really used, and you're going to sort of take that, and the idea is to build more housing there, or invite people to submit bids to develop more housing.
I think the latter part is where we're going to start. We really are about to start a process where we are engaging with residents, community leaders, community-based organizations to talk about the future of their developments. As you know, as on your show earlier this summer, we released our 10-year strategic investment plan, Next Generation NYCHA, which is really about getting the financial house in order of the authority so that we can deal with the quality of life, the quality of the conditions that are in people's homes. And so the 50-50 plan is one of 15 strategies that we outlined with the mayor that seeks to build more affordable housing and raise some much needed revenue for the authority.
How much revenue could you raise by making this happen, selling these development rights in effect at both of these developments?
Well, you know, our plan assumed a number of assumptions, and I should say this 50-50 plan is one of three parts of our development strategy. The first is our affordable housing, our 10,000 over 10 units, 10 years, which we also announced in May. This is the second component, and the third component is a preservation of 14,000 units. And so in totality, we estimated that the authority can raise about $1.4 billion over the next 10 years to address our operating and capital needs.
Talking now just about the new development, the new units that might be built, would those become part of NYCHA's portfolio, or would this new developer, whoever it might be, build it and also maintain it?
So first of all, NYCHA will retain ownership of the land. This administration has been very clear about retaining ownership of these important and vital public assets. But we would enter into a long-term lease with a selected developer, and they would become part of the city's private housing stock, with a very significant 50% of it being affordable housing available to families making at a minimum of $46,000 a year for a family of three, and then the remaining 50% being a market rate component.
To the extent that revenue comes from the sale of those development rights and/or any other concessions or anything that goes on, would it be targeted back to the same development?
Most definitely. We are looking at really how do we address the capital needs of these specific developments and raise additional revenues for the authority writ large. So, you know, Homes in particular has a $47 million capital need. And so when we began to look at where we might roll out this program, we took a number of considerations in our thinking. One of them was, what was the likelihood of our ability to address the capital needs of that development? Two was the potential, the actual physical nature of the site. Could buildings actually be built? Three was the potential for revenue, and fourth was the leverage of nearby public investment. We really are looking to connect neighborhoods, reconnect neighborhoods, not just build buildings.
Was this the product of sort of internal models, or did you have informal discussions with private sector players to get a sense of what they might be willing to do and how much they might be willing to pay? You
know, both. I mean, part of our work over the last year and a half, Errol, has been to really understand the true crisis point that we find ourselves in at the authority. So we've talked to our residents, our stakeholders, folks in the private sector to understand what are those important levers that we have in our disposal to get our financial house in order and address the real capital need that we're facing, which, as you know, is approximately $17 billion.
Right. I saw something that concerned me, the suggestion that this was going to be subject to the Uniform Land Use Review Procedure, also known as ULURP. Why is that? This is all public land. Can't you just do things as of right?
Yeah, so the one development that would be subject to ULURP is at NYCHA in Brooklyn, because actually what we can do as of right is actually quite small in terms of just the sheer number of units, and we actually think that there's the capacity to do more. And so this is an opportunity to really engage with the surrounding Borum Hill community, as well as our residents, to ensure that we not only seek to build a building or buildings that seek the maximum amount of units to create for affordable housing, but also to help us realize revenues.
Well, I mean, one of the things that comes with ULURP is that it normally takes about 2 years to get through the process. Is that the timeline for this?
You know, look, as you know, development takes a while anyway, and so we are just last week began a series of conversations that will then lead into a series of lobby meetings, small sort of tabletop conversations, then that will merge into larger community charrettes with the plan to release our RFPs in the first part of next year, with the expectation that we'll close at least in a year on those deals. So it does take a bit of time, but you know, I think what's important here is that, you know, the resident voice, we have lengthened the table, and we are ensuring that, you know, everyone has a seat at the table who wishes to provide their input as we think about not only how we address the city's very real affordable housing crisis, but also our very real fiscal challenge.
Do you have any concerns about, for lack of a better word, NIMBYism? I mean, my experience has been that, you know, people find themselves in a pretty good housing situation, and then they want that to be frozen in time, and that, you know, they can find a million different reasons why you can't put another stick in the ground, you can't move in another family.
Right. No, look, I think the one sure thing about engagement is that New Yorkers will have lots of different opinions that they are eager to share with us. And, you know, I am confident that we will hear all of those different opinions, but I think people who care about this city and recognize that the Housing Authority is the last bastion of affordable housing. I mean, there was a study last week that said you have to make $36 an hour to actually live in this city. In order for that housing to remain affordable and for the families, for the hundreds of thousands of families who count on it, we got to do some drastic things.
I saw that there's going to be a preference, 25% or a preference for NYCHA residents, 50% preference for people who live within that community board. That strikes me as somewhat arbitrary.
Not at all, actually, and it builds on the work that we've done in the past. You know, we have always had, when NYCHA has done this type of development, which we have, affordable housing development, there's been a 25% preference, and then when one is subject to ULURP, there is a community board preference that is a part of that. So, you know, we are both looking to meet the needs of our residents within the law. HUD has or the Department of Housing and Urban Development has some very clear rules and fair housing rules that, you know, we have to follow like everyone else. But we also recognize that residents should have an opportunity to participate in and be a part of any new development.
But isn't the problem that it's just particular residents? I mean, if somebody lives in, you know, somebody lives in Far Rockaway, they make $25,000 a year. Somebody lives in Borum Hill, they make $25,000 a year. Why is it so much more important for that second person to have preference for a unit that the whole city is paying for?
Well, our preference is NYCHA-wide, right? So, you know, we will work very closely with our residents at the respective developments to make sure that they understand when the lottery is coming out, and that we do a very aggressive, clear, transparent marketing process. But it really is focused on addressing the housing needs of NYCHA residents across the city. But more importantly, we want to be addressing the capital needs of the residents of the apartments that are at the development as we speak. And I think that's where quality of life begins.
Last couple of questions.
Sure.
Can I read anything into the fact that the Holmes Towers, as far as I can tell, are in the district of the City Council Speaker?
Other than to say we are, you know, there are very few sites where we can both meet our goals of creating more affordable housing, meaning a significant number, as well as actually realizing some real revenues. You know, there are only a few sites like that that allow us to achieve those goals, and Holmes and NYCHA happen to be the first two.
Okay, and I guess beyond that, can I convince you to just ram this through if it's such a good idea and not make this like a multi-year process with lots of fighting and screaming, lawsuits and accusations? Because I see that right around the corner, honestly.
Look, I hope that, you know, and I think this administration has shown that when you engage people early and often, and you are honest about the state that we find ourselves in, people will ultimately make the right decision. Engagement does not mean we are always going to agree, but it does mean that I will listen and that we will listen and that ultimately we preserve public housing, which is why we're doing this.
Okay, something we can all agree on, and we'll be watching for the first engagement meetings. Please let us know about it. We'll let the public know as best we can.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.